Hello, everyone. I want to review a recent case that came down. It's a probate case. Really, it's not a probate case. I guess I should call it a partition lawsuit, but it resulted from a probate matter where a family member passed away and then his home and real estate was transferred down to three siblings, and this is what happened. Boom, a lot of fighting, right? So all of this can be avoided if we set things up maybe a little bit differently in advance and make some plans for it. And part of the problem with the case I'm about to describe is that we don't really know why there was such a conflict and why there was so many objections going on. But what I can explain to you very clearly is that it was a unnecessarily expensive and long drawn out process that we ought to try to plan for and avoid, and a little bit of planning and a little bit of care up front can really solve a lot of problems as we go along. So this family, gentleman passed away, and then he made his three kids his heirs on a piece of real estate, and two of them wanted to sell it, the other one didn't. We don't know why, but that's what happened. And so whenever you own real estate with another person, you can petition the court and ask for it to be sold. It doesn't have to be majority rule. It can be just any one of them. But 2 out of 3 wanted to sell the property, and the lawsuit is called a partition lawsuit. So you're going to divide it into parts and get your money out. So what happened is that all throughout this case, which is very typical, the one person that's objecting just continued to object and object and object. It drug it out for years. 2 years actually, and finally, the property was sold. But what was so sad to me is that, the property went from an $80,000 buyer to a $75,000 buyer, finally to an auction where it was ultimately sold for $51,000. So everybody lost in this case. The lawyers even were trying to get paid. They just kept trying to do a good job, but it just kept dragging on because this one person was objecting at every step of the proceeding. And again, the court record and this opinion that I'm reading from and that I'll cite for you, it doesn't tell why this one sibling didn't want to sell or why they were objecting to these different price points or the deal terms. But the lawyers did it right, and the other 2 siblings sort of did it right. They kept going back to the court, tell us what to do, explain what was happening. The court kept giving more and more mercy. That's kind of in one of my other videos, justice and mercy working together. But what happened here was the court sent them to mediation, and that's where there's an informal settlement. And the parties did settle it, but then the agreement fell through because the buyer fell through. And then they could never get anything done. So they kept going back to the trial court, and the court kept giving more opportunities for the parties to agree, hoping that they would agree. And this is typical of what happens in court. It can be frustrating that you think, hey, I want the court to just make a decision. But the court is always trying to get parties to work things out and always trying to get them to work together and solve it on their own without the hammer of the court intervening and saying, this is what we're going to do. The court always wants to try to find a middle ground or a solution that's agreeable. They never did. The case ultimately was sold at the sheriff's sale and for a low price. And then, still nobody was happy, unfortunately. But this is what happened. So take a look at the case, settle it on the way to court. Don't try to think you're going to get your pound of flesh from the court. The system is there to try to really help you solve things in an agreeable manner, if at all possible. But if you can't, there is a solution. There is an auction process, and the Court of Appeals upheld everything that the trial court did, except for an award of attorney fees. They said no, in a partition case, there's no award of attorney fees under that statute. That's another kind of side point that, people always want to get attorney fees, but you cannot unless your contract provides for it or a statute provides for it. So Maybe it would have been better for the attorneys to sell the property in the probate case and then get their fees out of it. And that would have been a way to get paid, because the statute in probate court does allow for attorney fees and cost and personal representative fees. So that would be another remedy. So take a look at that. Partition lawsuit, very important remedy. We do these kind of cases on a regular basis because parties cannot ever agree on what to do in the future, and we'd be happy to help you as well. But it's a long drawn out process, or can be, if there's somebody that just wants to buck the system at every step and not cooperate. Take a look at the case. Give us a call if you need to. We'd be happy to help. Thank you.